Thanksgiving was supposed to feel like home, but there were only 5 plates set, not 6. I paused at the doorway, my gaze lingering on the familiar table, the one that had always been ours. But my seat? Gone. In its place, a simple bowl of fake eucalyptus, a flickering wax candle, and a silence that spoke volumes. Ava breezed in 20 minutes late, her laughter filling the air before she even stepped inside. She wore a designer coat that screamed wealth, her voice the kind that commanded attention with ease. "Oh, Lena," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear, still keeping it simple. "I see." Her words dripped with something that could almost be called pity, but it felt more like charity. I took my seat across from her without a word. She effortlessly took over the conversation, talking about her recent promotion, her boss singing her praises for being the sharpest mind in the room. Mom smiled wide, Dad nodded, impressed. Even my uncle, who could barely remember to send a birthday card, asked for her business card. Not a single person asked about me, not about the long flight I'd just taken, not about the work I chose not to flaunt online, and certainly not how I was really doing. At one point, Ava leaned in closer, her voice dripping with sweet venom. "It's kind of cute how you've gone off the grid, a gap year that never ended, huh?" Laughter rippled through the room, and no one thought to stop it. I didn't flinch, didn't even try to defend myself. Instead, I raised my glass, took a sip, and let the moment simmer, knowing exactly how it would unfold. She didn't know this yet, that shiny paycheck she kept bragging about? I signed it, but not here, not now. Let them laugh, let them look down on me just one more time. The silence that would follow? That's when I'd let them hear me loudest. They thought I was drifting, lost between jobs, between decisions, between 2 versions of myself. To them, taking time to figure things out was synonymous with failure, a life abandoned. The truth? I walked away 5 years ago from a life that looked perfect on paper but felt like sand slipping through my fingers every single day. The paycheck was fat, the office had panoramic windows, and the meetings? Filled with people who smiled, but only with their mouths. Ava was one of them. She worked 5 floors above me, never once acknowledging my existence, unless she needed something. Fix this slide deck, run those numbers, make me look good. And I did, every time, until I didn't. One morning, I shut my laptop, handed in my badge, and walked out without a word. No dramatic exit, no farewell email, just a quiet promise to myself I'd start over, this time on my own terms. I built something no one saw coming, a boutique consulting firm, small, quiet, but just big enough to matter. No flashy office, 3 contractors, clients who paid on time and never once asked where I went to college. I didn't post about it, didn't add titles to my bio, didn't tell my family, and they filled the silence with their own narrative of me as a dreamer, a dropout, the one who never quite made it. They wrote my story for me, but the ending? That's still mine to tell. It came the morning after I got a text from Ava. "Brunch tomorrow, bringing the girls, wear something cute." No invitation, just a command wrapped in glitter. I stared at the screen. We hadn't hung out in years, not outside family gatherings, no coffee, no calls. The last time we were alone, she asked if I still freelanced. On purpose, part of me wanted to ignore the text, but the other part of me couldn't. I already knew where she worked. Her department's numbers had crossed my desk 2 weeks ago. My firm had been hired to fix their inefficiencies. And Ava? She was one of them. She had no idea. My name only appeared in her inbox on contracts, approvals, payrolls. I was invisible to her, but I knew. So I said yes, sure, what time? Her response came almost instantly. "Hazel and Pine, don't be late." Hazel and Pine, the kind of place people went to be seen, crisp dishes, sunlight streaming through windows, waiters who knew your name and posted your photo on the cafe's Instagram. I put my phone down, walked to my closet. No need for anything flashy, just something clean, sharp, and strong enough to cut through the pretense. She wanted a show? I'd give it to her, but not the one she expected. Hazel and Pine smelled like lemon zest and ambition. I walked in right on time, neither early nor late. The hostess gave me a once-over, her gaze lingering too long on my shoes before offering a practiced smile. Ava waved from the back. Her table was full, 3 women in matching neutrals, their laughter just loud enough to sound powerful. No one stood to greet me when I sat. Ava barely looked up. "Hey," she said, dragging the word out like she was savoring it. "We were just talking about dating apps. Lena's off the grid. She probably still thinks swiping is for credit cards." Laughter rippled through the table. One of the women, Chloe, tilted her head, curious. So, what do you do? Before I could answer, Ava leaned in, her voice coated in syrup. She's exploring, soul first, spreadsheet later, that kind of freedom's rare. It wasn't even cruel, it was condescension dressed in velvet. I stirred my tea, letting it slide off my back. When the waiter arrived, Ava waved him off. We'll do the prix, she said. She's with us. The word she's with us landed harder than they should have. It wasn't hospitality, it was hierarchy. I looked at the table, perfectly polished watches, casual arrogance in their posture, the unspoken assumption that I didn't belong unless they decided I did. I didn't correct her, didn't mention my firm, didn't say a word about her department, or the consulting I was doing for them. Instead, I smiled, sipped my water, and folded my napkin into my lap. Let them think I was nobody, the reveal would come soon enough. Brunch went on as they expected, stories about clients, conferences, and interns who couldn't handle a little feedback. Ava, in her element, loud, polished, performative. I let her take center stage, let the courses come and go, smiled when it was required, nodded when necessary. I let the version of me she'd created linger a little longer, until, without warning, the waiter returned with a leather-bound check presenter and placed it in front of me, already covered. He said it so casually, as if it were no big deal. The card on file from Caldwell Strategies took care of it. That's the firm, right? Ava blinked, confused. Wait, Caldwell? What? One of her friends sounded genuinely surprised. The waiter gave them a puzzled look before clarifying. Yeah, Caldwell Strategies. They booked the table, partner account. They come in often. Ava, that's you, right? Ava's face remained frozen for a moment, a flicker of recognition passing behind her eyes, a struggle between disbelief and something else I couldn't quite place. Yeah, that's me. Her gaze shifted toward me, really seeing me for the first time all morning. I didn't flinch. I didn't feel the need to explain. Instead, I reached for the check, unfolded it, and studied the zeroed total like it was the most ordinary thing in the world, because it was. One of the women leaned in, curiosity piqued. You're with Caldwell? What do they do? I folded the receipt and tucked it back inside. We manage performance, I said, my voice measured, giving nothing more than that. I stood, adjusting my jacket, then turned toward Ava, offering a smile that was soft as silk but edged with something else. Next time, just let me know if you want to expense dessert. It'll save you the surprise. Then, I walked out slowly, deliberately, giving her time to process what had just happened. This wasn't the first time Ava had seen my name. She'd simply never bothered to read it. Weeks before brunch, she'd received a performance memo from corporate, a standard review, full of action points and milestones. She'd proudly posted about it on LinkedIn, honored to be selected for this strategic initiative, excited to grow. She never mentioned the signature at the bottom, L. Caldwell, partner. It was there, bold and unmistakable, printed on the cover letter of the firm her company had hired for department analysis. She read the bullet points, appreciated the formatting, even quoted one of the lines in a team meeting, but the signature? She skimmed past it, because the idea that Lena, the same Lena she'd ridiculed for not using her degree, could be the one shaping her KPIs, her timelines, her bonus eligibility, was unthinkable to her. A few months earlier, HR had looped her into a compliance meeting, routine stuff. My firm was already on retainer. Ava had signed the acknowledgement form without a second thought. At the bottom of the contract, the same initials, the same name, Lena Caldwell. But when you spend years looking down on someone, you stop seeing them clearly. You stop imagining that they could ever be ahead of you. Even when she saw it, she didn't see it. And now, sitting at a table she thought she controlled, watching me walk away with no dramatic scene, she knew, though not because I told her, but because the signature she'd ignored had just paid for her lunch. When I turned back toward the table, Ava's smile was stretched too thin, a little too eager. Wait, so you work there? She said, forcing a laugh, as though this could still be brushed off as a misunderstanding. Her voice was light, but her hands betrayed her. One gripped her phone, the other nervously played with her napkin, folding and unfolding it. I sat back down, unhurried. I don't work there, I replied, my tone even. I built it. The table fell silent. Even the waiter, still lingering with his tray of empty glasses, froze, caught in the shift of the room's energy. Ava blinked twice. Chloe, the woman with the perfect lipstick, leaned forward, her curiosity now impossible to disguise. Wait, you're Caldwell? The consulting firm, Ava? That's your payroll firm. right? Ava exhaled sharply, part cough, part laugh, but no words came. I took a slow sip of my tea, letting the silence stretch. We've worked with several departments, I added softly, but the tech division? That one's personal. Across the table, eyes widened, Ava's mouth opened, but no sound came out. I checked my phone, slipped it into my clutch, and stood. Ladies, thank you for brunch. Ava, always a pleasure. I didn't wait for a response. The power wasn't in my words. It was in the silence, the way the laughter stopped, the way no one filled it. And as I walked out, calm, deliberate, never looking back, I knew something Ava was only just starting to realize. Respect isn't demanded, it's earned. She called that night, not right away, but hours later, after the last glass had been cleared, after the sun dipped below the horizon and the shadows stretched across everything. My phone buzzed twice, then again. I answered on the third ring, not because I owed her anything, but because I was curious about the version of the truth she'd try to spin now. Hey, she said, so, that was weird, right? I didn't answer, let the silence fill the space between us. I mean, I just didn't know, you could have said something, we wouldn't have. She didn't say mocked you, didn't say treated you like a joke, didn't say humiliated. Why didn't you ever tell us what you do? She asked, her voice softer now, as though lowering the volume could hide the edge of her frustration. I leaned against the counter, watching the lights flicker through my window, steady and sure. You weren't listening, I said, you were too busy writing the story you wanted to hear. Silence stretched, heavy this time, then, Lena, can we just agree this doesn't leave the table? I mean, it's not relevant to HR, right? There it was, not shame, not apology, just fear, not that I'd been erased, but that she might now have to answer for it. I wouldn't worry, I said, the contract speaks for itself. There was a pause, maybe she thought I was bluffing. But I wasn't. Maybe she realized I wasn't bluffing because, for the first time in years, I wasn't the one trying to be understood. This time, it was her. The next time we crossed paths, it wasn't in person. I logged into the quarterly audit presentation 5 minutes early. As usual, the meeting room on my screen was pristine, clean white walls, neat chairs, a carafe of untouched water at the center of the table. Then the camera flickered on, and Ava walked in. She didn't notice me at first. She was busy talking to someone off-screen, holding a leather folder like it gave her some kind of authority. When she looked up, saw the monitor, saw my face, her smile didn't break immediately. It froze, tilted for a second, then slipped just a little at the corners. Let's get started, I said, voice calm, controlled. This session will cover division spending and accountability across Q3. No one else in the room spoke. I clicked to the first slide, a breakdown of department inefficiencies. Ava's name appeared twice, once under pending review, once under recommendation, restructure. I didn't flinch, didn't raise my voice. I simply walked them through the numbers, the overages, the missed targets, the silence where leadership should have intervened. She scribbled notes as though trying to undo her mistakes with enough ink, but we both knew the paper trail was clear. At the end, the director thanked me. One of the partners nodded, asking if we needed to escalate. I smiled softly, no escalation, just documentation. That was when Ava understood something no brunch table had ever taught her. This wasn't personal, it was professional, and in that room, under those fluorescent lights, with my signature already on the file, she wasn't my sister, she was my subject. It happened quietly, no announcement, no drama, just a memo. Ava was placed under review, pending further audit. The language was clean, almost clinical, a few lines about procedural assessment, departmental oversight, and non-compliance with internal thresholds, but I knew exactly what that meant. Her promotion was frozen, travel approvals revoked, access restricted. Her calendar, once packed with calls and leadership workshops, began to look empty. She texted once, "Is this your doing?" I didn't answer. It wasn't revenge, it was response. She played a part in a system that overlooked people like me, that erased quiet workers, rewarded numbers over people, volume over value, and now, that same system was holding her accountable. She started coming in earlier, staying later, double-checking things she used to think were beneath her, but it was too late. The emails had already been pulled, the reports already reviewed, and the person holding the mirror to her decisions no longer needed to explain herself. At the next leadership sync, I was listed as an external auditor. Ava didn't speak once during the meeting. I logged off before they wrapped up, and in the silence that followed, the kind that comes after exposure, Not accusation. I understood something simple. I didn't need her to fall. I just needed her to see where she stood. No applause. No satisfaction. Just consequence. I didn't return to the office. There was nothing left there I needed. The last audit report went out on a Friday. I signed it from a sunlit cafe 2 hours outside the city, where no one knew my name, and the waitress called me ma'am with quiet kindness. This time, the silence felt earned. Ava never followed up, not with a call, not with another message. I heard, in passing, that she was considering other opportunities, a polite way of saying that the building no longer had space for her the way it once did. As for me, I stopped shrinking, stopped apologizing for being hard to define, for building something invisible, for walking away before the applause ever started. I began walking into rooms slower, holding eye contact longer, letting the silence stretch when someone asked, "What do you do?" Because now, the answer didn't need to fit in a sentence. It lived in how I carried myself, in how I no longer needed the room to applaud, just to not try to define who I was for me. A few weeks later, I passed Hazel and Pine again, not intentionally, just life. Ava was there. She didn't see me at first, but when our eyes met, it was only for a moment. She looked away quickly, and I kept walking, not out of pride, not out of vengeance, but because I no longer needed her recognition. She couldn't rewrite me, not now, not ever again. They don't ask about me anymore, not at Thanksgiving, not in casual conversations, not even in family group texts, where silence speaks louder than any insult, and that's fine, because I no longer need to be spoken about to feel whole. I learned that revenge doesn't always come in grand gestures or public apologies. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, like a still, balanced room, like a gaze that finally understands who you've been all along. I don't need Ava to say sorry, she already did, in her silence, and I didn't need the company to fire her. They didn't need to. She walked herself out of a version of power that was never meant to last. As for me, I returned with something she could never take, my own definition, my own name signed without hesitation, my own presence, no longer explained away, no longer dismissed. I didn't need to shout, I didn't need to win, I just needed to stop playing the part they wrote for me. They laughed at brunch. I signed the check and walked away, unbothered.